let us examine some signs here. Let's not call them necessarily arguments or proofs, because Allah does not need any proof. Let's call them signs. Some signs that point us to the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many proofs and arguments that you will find in theology, in philosophy. Some of them are shared by religions, by Christianity, by Islam. Some of them are specific to the religion of Islam. There are a number of arguments out there. However, I believe the most comprehensive argument that takes into consideration many aspects from other arguments is what we call the argument of design, or the teleological argument. So we have the argument of design. Another word for it, another term for it, is the teleological argument. There's the ontological argument. There are a number of arguments. This is what we call the teleological argument. Now, before examining this argument in depth, let's just say the basic form of this argument. At a basic level, what does this argument say? The gist of this argument is that when you look around you and you see the impeccable design, the organization, how specific life is, the conditions for life, the intellect, without any doubt, confirms to you that all this creation must have a creator, an intelligent creator, not just any random creator. So when you see the organization in this life, you automatically know that there is an intelligent creator who created life. Life cannot create its own self, so it must have a creator. Now, in order for us to examine this argument in more depth, let's mention several logical and philosophical points here. One is that we have the law of cause and effect. In Arabic, in philosophy, we call this al-'illa wal-ma'lul. The 'illa means the cause. Wal-ma'lul means the effect. Everything in this world around us has a cause. There is nothing that can exist without a cause. This is an intellectual law that our power of reason dictates to us. There is a cause to every single effect. Now, when you examine the world around you, the existence around you, the mind tells you everything needs to have a cause. Now, the intellect points to you that everything has a cause. The universe is based on this principle of al-'illa, of a cause. Now, all of these effects in the world, they need to go back to one cause that created everything, that caused everything, or put everything in motion. Because when you examine anything that is created in this world, any object, it must have a cause. It cannot exist on its own. Nothing can create itself. In one hadith, Al-Imam al-Rida alayhi salam points to this law. He was asked, how do you know that you have a creator? He said it very simply. He said, because I did not exist, that I know for sure. There was a point where I did not exist, then I existed. I know I didn't create myself, and I know someone weak like me didn't create me. So I know that I have a creator, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the first cause. So you have to end at a first cause. Why? You could argue, okay, anything that was created, you can go back in time and say there was something else before it that created it. These galaxies and stars, what created them? There was an event that created them. You go back in time. You go back to the Big Bang. You go back to that first dense core. In the end, you need a first cause that put everything in motion. Because nothing can create its own self. Nothing can move its own self. Now, some will tell you, well, you don't have to arrive at that first cause. It was just there. This kept happening, this cycle. Every effect has a cause. That cause has another cause, and you just go back in time, infinitely. The mind tells you this is impossible. In Arabic, we call this at-tasalsul. What does at-tasalsul mean? When something goes back into existence ad infinitum is what we call it in philosophy. When something keeps going back in time, infinitely, it's impossible. You need a starting point. Because if you don't have a starting point, you have nothing. You can't just infinitely go back. You know, if someone would tell you 13 billion years ago, what caused the universe? Okay, the Big Bang. What caused the Big Bang? A reaction in that dense core. Okay, what caused that reaction? They'll come up with a law in physics that tell you get that reaction. Okay, what caused that law? What put that law into motion? You need to end somewhere. That's what the mind dictates. You can't infinitely go back, because if you infinitely go back, then you have no effect. But we see that there is an effect. There is this creation. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say you go to a judge and you have a paper that is signed. You go to the judge, you ask him, who signed this paper? He tells you the previous judge, not me. You go to the previous judge, you ask him, who signed this paper? He says, the previous judge who was here before me. You go to that judge and you ask him, who signed this paper? He says, the previous judge. The fifth previous judge, the sixth, seven, eight, and you keep going back into infinity. There must be a first judge who signed this. Because if you infinitely go back and every single judge will tell you the previous judge signed this, and this infinitely goes back, then the mind tells you that's impossible. This infinite regressive chain that we call tasalsul is just impossible. Because when something infinitely goes back, then it doesn't exist. But I see the paper, so there must be a first judge who signed this. When I see the signature, that's an effect. That signature tells me someone must have signed it. It couldn't infinitely go back in time. So we know that tasalsul, this infinite chain that takes you back in time, is impossible. There must be a first cause. There must be a first mover. Now you, sometimes in philosophy, will come across this argument called the argument of motion. We see things around us, they're moving. Particles, every particle, every atom is moving. Every electron is moving. Who put that in motion? There must be a first cause, a first mover as they call that source, who put everything in motion. Otherwise, you have no motion. If you infinitely just keep going back in time, then the mind tells you then there can't be any motion. There must be a starting point. You can't just infinitely go back and say, oh, that previous factor caused the motion. Okay, what caused that factor? Oh, another previous factor, and another one, and you infinitely go back. That's impossible. There must be a first factor that put everything in motion. You know, they say once they asked an old woman who was not educated formally, but she had the ma'rifah of Allah, the knowledge of God. They told this old lady, how do you know that your Lord exists? Now she would sew clothes, and she had, that spinning wheel. She says, my wheel tells me God exists. They're like, how? She's like, when I move it, it moves. And when I stop, it stops. In other words, everything needs a cause. That wheel, it's not going to spin on itself. If I move it, it moves. If I don't, it'll stop. It can't move itself. It needs an outside factor to move it. So even that first core from which the Big Bang occurred, it needs an outside, external power that put it in motion, that gave it its energy. So this argument of design, one of the introductory points that we discuss in terms of this argument is that everything requires a mover. Everything requires a first cause that puts everything into motion. Nothing can create its own self. So this is one of the premises that we use when we examine the argument of motion.